got on or that I've recorded where we have some type of something go on. So I
Oh,
know.
no, this is what makes this amazing, I
Yeah.
think. And this is actually it's not the first time we've recorded um, video, but this will be this show is the first time we're actually publishing our video.
Perfect.
So I'm
Perfect.
glad that we're both camera ready.
I was gonna say I don't know about that on my end, but
Okay, everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Radically Loved Radio. I am so excited, especially today, to be talking to a new friend whom I just have recently met. And I met Joe through my other Chewy number two, I call him Chase Tuning. Um, and I'm so excited that our paths crossed.
yeah.
Once our paths crossed, as I normally do when a new person comes into my life, I do some homework, you know, and I was just so stricken by all the work that you've done, and your story and your journey really felt resonant with my own. And I felt instantly connected to your drive and your desire to continue to, remove obstacles on your path. And just, I was left so inspired by the work that you're doing, which obviously you're going to talk about. But I'm really glad that our paths crossed, and I'm so
Yeah.
honored to have you on the show. So thank you for being
Thank
here.
you. Thank you. And likewise, it's this human experience is a journey, and we all see pieces of ourselves in other people. And I have to say the same when people cross your path that you can connect with at that spiritual, energetic, and just wholesome level. We got to run towards that, right? So
Yeah,
thank you for having me on
of
here.
course. I love that you said run towards it, because a lot of the times I think people shy away from that. I think even now in the world that we live in, with so much uh, content out there about connecting and creating community and all these things, innately it still feels like people are so guarded, and people are still sort of shying away from a genuine connection with another person.
Yeah, yeah, because a lot of the times you have to get really vulnerable to create that true connection. And when we're in that vulnerable self, it's uncomfortable. We don't know. Sometimes we're not safe. Sometimes we're pulling down walls and masks that we've built our entire lives. And when we live like that for so long, sometimes it's scary to be fully radically vulnerable.
Yeah, yeah. So that being said, you're not like a lot of people. so, I mean, you're not like the general population. So I'd really love for you to tell us how you got started and what led you to this industry and doing the work that you're doing now.
Yeah, it's been a ride, that's for sure. College, I studied aerospace engineering and had always been like a space geek nerd, and went into aerospace engineering for schooling and had this dream of, since being a really young kid, being an astronaut. My dad was an airline pilot. I was super interested in how the planes flew. I loved putting together Legos. It was just like this. It was me from a very young age, and I was terrible at reading and writing. So it made sense. And there was also this little idea of, okay, you go get the engineering degree and you get the job and you make the money and you're comfortable and you build this type of kind of a facade and a meaning through
Yeah.
having what people would call as some allure to that job as an aerospace engineer. And so got to college and was pursuing that, but also came from white suburbia sheltered life into a city in Boulder, Colorado, which the school is an amazing school, but it's also known heavily for partying. And woke up to the fact that I didn't know who I was and started surrounding myself with people that I would have never connected with before. And I started molding, I started becoming a chameleon, and drinking and drugs became a huge part of my life. And while pursuing a job and a career path that was going to require a lot of work and stressful work while in college, I was still on the other end, partying and losing myself, getting to the point where I really didn't know myself. My anxiety was really bad through college. I used drugs and alcohol to escape that, and, made a lot of decisions that weren't self-led. And so my first senior year of college, because I ended up taking 5 years to graduate, I got really, really depressed after, a span of a couple weeks of intense partying, and tried to commit suicide. And when that happened, I woke up to how inauthentically I was living. I had this desire and this idea of who I was as a human being, as a loving, caring human being, as somebody that works really, really hard to build this career path for myself, and also somebody who really, growing up, played a lot of sports and loved health and fitness and working out, and was completely like losing that part of myself. And I was becoming this other person, which was a product of a lot of the people that I was just surrounding myself with. So I was building this massive chasm, this gap of who I wanted to be, who I thought I was, and who I was day to day, and how I was making decisions. And that led to a massive rupture and a massive bout of depression that led me to leave my college town, and finish my then second year of senior year in college, driving an hour to school. I had gotten an internship with a big aerospace firm my third year of college, and was holding on to that, was really scared of losing that because of the stupid decisions I was making in my life. So that second senior year or fifth year of college, I was working 30 hours a week in this job, in this aerospace job. I was also finishing 4 classes up in Boulder, Colorado, and I was driving about 3 hours in a loop every single day to do all of that around Denver and Boulder, and was still pretty depressed for a long span of time, but then found this health and fitness community through Instagram one day, and said, I think that's something that I could actually start pouring my energy into while I'm now really lonely, and I've cut a bunch of people out of my life, and I've recognized that I just need to make a complete change in my life. And once I found this health and fitness world on Instagram, just dove in, and then spent a couple of years competing and building a network of friends across the nation through social media, and ended up getting the engineering job, and started really working myself up in the engineering world, but also found myself really unfulfilled sitting in that cubicle. And so I had this like outside health and fitness world that I was building, and then I had this engineering world that I thought was what I was supposed to be. And I was recognizing that I still wasn't happy. I still wasn't filling myself up. And that was a catalyst for a lot of decisions over the last 3-4 years that have now brought me to where I am today. But it was a very dark place in college that led me to cutting a lot of people and a lot of aspects of my life
Can I
out.
ask you about that? I think that, and I don't want to I want to hear all of it. And I just have so many questions as you're talking, because I feel like that's such a huge thing to address, especially for younger kids that age now, that the importance of surrounding yourself with people that are going to lift you up and that are going to make you feel good, and not feel good temporarily, like just when we're partying and having a good time, but feel good and want want you to be your highest self, and want you to be at your healthiest, so was that because it's so isolating to cut yourself off when that's like your crew, right? So how did you do that?
I've actually done that multiple times in my life, and I'm kind of going through it like right now again. It's hard, and it's taken me breaking and really just like sitting back and looking at myself and how I show up every day, and understanding if I am showing up in that in that authentic self and pursuing desires that I really want to. And, so leaving college, it started with, well, I just wasn't answering text messages and I just wasn't answering phone calls. And I had excuses of when I did talk to people of why I wasn't going to be there. And, those excuses don't feel really good either. So I started just asking myself, like, what do I really want? And what do I need to have in my life that pushes me towards that? And I need to have people that challenge me and that ask difficult questions and actually really truly deep down care about more than what we're doing on the external, and really care about my innards. And that wasn't happening in college. And they were not bad people, but I think we were all lost. And when you get a conglomerate of a bunch of lost people together, it was extremely dangerous. And it's been years since then, and I have talked to people that were in my life at that time, and not a single one of them was frustrated with me. They were worried about me. They were curious where I went. They missed me. They also knew that I needed to do it. But when you're first making those decisions, it's really scary. It's nerve-wracking. Like, am I not enough for these people? Are they not going to love me? Do they think that, am I not worthy of having these relationships and other people in my life? But the real question was, like, are these my authentic people? And
Mm-hmm.
do they, and then are they still going to love me if I don't show up? And those people that still did, that I cut out of my life, I still talk to them. But it was a huge evaluation of what was filling me up and what was holding me back. And I realized at the time there was a lot that was holding me back. And
Mm-hmm.
it was really lonely. It was really frustrating for a long time. But once I started to make those decisions, the acceleration into who I wanted to be was like none I've ever seen before.
Wow. Yeah, that's so inspiring because it's a pretty courageous act to do that, because in a sense you're spurning yourself from your tribe, which is one of the biggest fears that we have, is to be isolated or to be exiled from our group. And when you do it yourself, I mean, it's such a huge act of courage to cut yourself off in a sense, because it's that feeling right after you go through a really bad breakup where you're like, I'll never find somebody that's going to love me like this, or I'm never going to find people that care about me, or I'm never going to, and it's such a daunting place to be, albeit necessary for your growth. It's like, we don't grow within the perimeter. We have to be able to push through the perimeter to grow and to become who we're designed to be, if we don't
Yeah.
have these experiences, right? So I think it's very courageous. And I thank you for speaking to that, because I always feel like when I hear, especially when I have guests on the show and we're talking about their story, I feel like the people that have gone through this type of process, we kind of just skate over it, and then we start talking about, like, oh, now this is what you've created and this is so amazing. But I'm like, yeah, but I want to know how you got through that, and how difficult it was, because it is. And I feel like especially people listening can absolutely relate to that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So you went through that, and
Yeah.
then what?
Yeah. And then I was just, I was doing the bodybuilding thing and living the corporate engineering life for quite some time. And I actually, as I was in corporate America, started listening to Joe Rogan, started listening to a lot of podcasts, and started to realize that engineering and that cubicle life wasn't filling me up. I also started to realize that I didn't fit in, which felt really, really weird, but I'd always knew that I wasn't a stereotypical engineer. I didn't have people that I hung out with outside of work that I actually worked with. It was like, well, this is really isolating. I have a good job, great benefits, good pay, whatever, but I don't feel it. Just something feels really off. And as I started listening to Joe Rogan more and just listening to him ask questions and talking about the society we live in and how people are just living in desperation and wanting something else, but actually not making the steps to make the change to do something else. I started coaching people online while I was in the fitness community and competing, and was like the 1 foot in, 1 foot out person. I was like, I have to have this like comfortable corporate job so I can pay my bills. But then I'm also going to try and pursue this entrepreneurial thing through the fitness community. And try as I might for a couple years, I made it nowhere with that because I wasn't all in. And I had always been somebody that I was risk adverse because that's how I grew up. That's how aerospace engineering also works, is minimize all your risk. But I wanted that security. And so I didn't want to let go of that paycheck because I didn't know how I was going to wake up the next day. I had this crazy idea in my mind of, if I leave this, and I was grown up and conditioned to think that way, then like, how are you going to do anything else? And so I was stuck, and the 1 foot in, 1 foot out thing really was going nowhere. I started to podcast myself with a bunch of other competitors and just kind of ask them about their stories and their backgrounds. And then I started talking to people more and more about real things like, hey, like, what do you actually do? How do you actually feel? Like, is competing actually healthy for you? Hey, have you ever used cannabis? Oh, I have, and I have, and I have. And it was just like this waterfall thing. And I was like, man, there's a lot of things that people aren't talking about. I listen to Joe Rogan and he'll talk about everything. How many people in my life and even myself, what am I not talking about that I use and I believe in? And as that started to happen, I renamed my podcast to Higher Health, which was really defining what like the true meaning of health is, or redefining it. And the facade of social media was something that was making me really frustrated. Although there are a lot of authentic people out there, and I know that I've found them over the years, but I was just starting to question a lot of things, and I realized that there were a lot of things that people didn't talk about. And I also had a massive interest in the cannabis industry, being here in Colorado and then moving to California and now back to Colorado. It had always been something around, and I had used it, but nobody had ever talked about it because it was like this stigmatized thing. And when more and more people in the health and fitness community started talking about it, I was like, I think somebody needs to do something about this. And as my entrepreneurial bug was still kicking, I had then taken another job out in California and was even more pissed about making that decision. I had gone to like more part-time at my original job and then moved to California, and I was like, oh, I need to get paid more. So I went backwards and I took the full-time job and was starting to give away the entrepreneurial dream. But then was just getting really, really frustrated at that new job and was getting belittled. My boss wasn't inviting me to meetings. I was just feeling down. I was feeling depressed again. I was feeling depressed like I had 5-6 years ago. And I was like, what's going on? And I realized that I wasn't listening to myself yet again. And that was when I knew I had to make a change. And that was when I dedicated my life to what is now my business. And the last 2 years have been a roller coaster of a time. But 2 years ago, September, I quit my job at the worst time. If you listen to what I was saying, I basically was like waiting for the most comfortable time to make this happen. That's why I had the 1 foot in, 1 foot out thing going on, but ended up quitting my job at the worst possible time. Had a little bit of an idea of what I wanted to do, had a product that was worth about $1.30 in my hand, and an idea and a feeling of becoming more and more depressed, and was seeing a therapist at the time, and went through an amazing session with him one day. And that same night put in my letter of resignation and jumped off the cliff, and have built some wings on the way down over the last couple of years.
I love that. I love that you built some wings on your way down. That's so good. And I love the fact that you, over the years, it was almost like you were getting primed to make this big decision because you kept having to be, you kept getting faced with this, this wall of unhappiness and, you know, all these different obstacles along the way. Um, I love what you said about having one foot in and one foot out, because I feel like so much of that we can all relate to. And I always say scattered attention gets scattered results. So, right. So when
100.
you, right, when you don't, uh, one of the things, and I want you to speak to this before we move on, and I want to talk about your incredible company, but there's this thing where, you know, well, it's twofold. We don't like to do things that are going to push us out of our comfort zone, right? Anything that's not secure or something that's questionable, we're not inclined to take that chance because our mind is wired for survival, right? So if your mind doesn't see that you can actually do something, then it's not going to happen.
Mm.
The other thing is uh, so that's one, right? It's like you can't see it, so it feels scary, so you don't want to jump. And then the other thing that I find with people, you know, students of mine or coaching clients that I work with, or myself as well, that when you put something out there or you have an idea that you feel like isn't getting received the way that you think it should be getting received, and you blame it on other people not caring, when in reality it's, no, you don't care, right? Because if you care about something, if you put your attention and your energy into something, people are going to care about it. They can't not. It's right. It's the law of I don't want to say it's the law of attraction, but it's almost like it's infused with your vitality. How could it not get the attention that it deserves? So I think that I'd really love for you to speak to either of those topics, if you would, just in your building to getting to a place where you finally made the jump.
Yeah, yeah. So it's funny because before I went into the therapy session with the guy that I honestly just saw once
Oh,
in
oh, this
California.
wasn't like an ongoing thing that you were in therapy.
No, well, I've I've been in therapy all my entire life, you
Okay.
know, but this specific
Right,
time,
right. Got it. Got it.
um, I've struggled with anxiety a lot in my life
Okay.
and depression,
Ditto.
and it runs in my family. Um, but so yeah, I was trying to convey this idea of what is now cured, and I would share it with people here and there. And I asked, I would tell people, and I quit my job ever before selling one product, uh, to reiterate it. But I had people that have watched me over the years that I, I think that you're right in saying that we, if you don't care 100% about yourself and what your desires are, you're not going to be able to fully communicate them. So if you have this vision that you're suppressing, somebody on the outside is never going to be able to see it because you have it in there, but you're not allowing yourself to own it. And so your communications around this idea, this thought, this desire are not coming out clearly. And that has happened so many times, and was happening when I was wanting to quit my job. And I was telling my dad, I was like, hey, like I have this idea, but I just need somebody to believe in me. And I remember calling him, and I was crying one day because I was so frustrated with my job, and I was so pissed at my boss at the time. And that was when I ended up, scheduling the appointment to go see a therapist. And what actually happened in that session was I painted a little bit of an idea of a business. I also painted the history of moving out there and a relationship ending and being very lonely in San Diego and making the decision to go back to a full-time job when I actually really didn't want to. And I was kind of just like blabbing all this stuff and coming out. And he just looks at me and he goes, like, I'm going to give you something, and you're probably no longer going to be a client of mine. I know you've only been here once, but I hear you and I see you, and you just need this. And he like turns to his desk and he pulls out a business card, flips it over, and he writes something on it and he hands it to me. And I look at it and it just says permission on it. And I go, huh. And I just got the chills right now. But he goes, like, I'm giving this to you, but that's not really how it's supposed to work. You need to give this to you. And I think that that's what happens when there's this block between what's going on in here and what's going on in the outside world and the people that you're trying to communicate with and share a vision with, or whatever it may be. You're not giving yourself the permission to fully live in that desire because you have some self-limiting belief, or you have something that's holding you back, and we're waiting for something on the outside. I was calling my dad saying, hey, I need somebody to believe in me. But I was just really needing to give myself the permission to believe in myself and know that I can figure this out, that whatever decision I make, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm capable and I'm worthy and I can do this. And that has driven so much of my life since that day. And I still have the card sitting on my desk that says permission, and I will never get rid of that. But that's what it is. I think we're all waiting for this external permission to do something on the inside, and you're never going to get it. You're going to be spinning your wheels your entire life waiting for it, when in fact it's just in yourself you have to give it to yourself.
Yeah. Wow. That made me totally emotional.
I haven't got chills like that before, but yeah, it's like you're banging your head against the wall and you're like, what's the solution?
Yeah.
But you're not looking in the mirror. You're
Yeah.
not looking yourself in the eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning of connecting to that, your highest self, connecting to that, your intuition. You were just the whole entire time. And we could all, everybody, even the people listening or watching this, we can all go back into our lives and remember times in our lives where we heard that calling, we heard that voice, and we just weren't listening, and I feel like all in divine timing, right? Had it happened too soon, maybe had it happened 2 years prior or 2 years later, like it happened when it needed to happen. But I feel like that point that you just made about having or giving ourselves the permission is one of the biggest things. It's the biggest thing that keeps us from taking care of ourselves, from being healthy, from, going to the doctor, from, taking that sick day, or being able to take that vacation that you need, being able to start that podcast that you want to start, or start your business. All of those things are so important and key to permission, right?
Yeah.
So let's transition back to talking about this business that you started. So how did that happen? And what is it for the people listening that don't know what Joe does?
Yeah. So I own and co-founded a company called CURED Nutrition, and we are a full service holistic wellness company rooted in nature. That's our tagline, is wellness rooted in nature. And what we're really trying to do is elevate lifestyles through conscious understanding of plants and plant medicine and what they can do for us, and specifically around the cannabis plant that has been so stigmatized for so long, and how we can actually use that plant to enhance our health and well-being. And it doesn't have to be in a way that society has viewed about it for far too long. And when I started using CBD specifically 2.5 years ago and noticing it giving me calming effects, allowed me to show up and to be able to meditate, or to be able to fall asleep at night, and to be able to recover, and to be able to just live life and feel more and more myself, I knew that there was something going on there. I knew that I had to look into it more. And I knew that I had to promote this from a health and wellness perspective that would help shift the stigma around something that is so stigmatized and a lot of people don't understand. So I saw this massive this massive wall that I had to climb over to talk about something that I firmly believed in. And now today, CBD is everywhere. But 2.5 years ago,
Yeah, it
not very
wasn't.
many people knew
Yeah.
about it. And I knew that I could make an impact through education and through a community of health and fitness professionals that are well respected to create this company that is now cured, and a amazing what we like to call movement through just education and real high quality products that are rooted in nature and really work.
Yeah.
uh,
So,
yeah.
and that is really exciting for somebody like me who is obviously in the health and wellness industry, and is always looking for, different things to help supplement an already healthy lifestyle. And what I want to talk about, just like our first conversation and my feeling about CBD, this is the first time I've ever actually talked about CBD on this podcast. And one of the reasons for me is because it was very stigmatized. It's been something that I grew up in a family of alcoholics and drug addicts. I always had an aversion to any kind of drug because when I was, when I was in my rebellious years, from the ages of like 12, 13 to about 16, I smoked pot every day, every day. Like that was my thing until I started to get really bad anxiety. And then I got put on medication because I was, having anxiety. And that kind of was one of the pivotal moments that took me away from everything. I started practicing yoga and I started to learn about health and wellness. And I just wanted to, and I also grew up around family members that were in the AA. So they were sober. So I leaned into them for this guidance of what healthy life was supposed to look like, and, what the things that I had to stay away from and so on, but I was the person that I couldn't function if I wasn't smoking pot, I just could not function. And so then getting on medication and being on medication for anxiety for a couple of years and wanting to get off of that because that was just making me overweight and really unhappy. So by the time I was in my, late teens, early 20s, I stopped doing everything. Like I didn't do anything. And so my health and wellness career, began. And throughout the last couple of years, just with all the new things that have come out and the micro dosing and, just like all the stuff that's out there that people are finding now that are helping with depression and all these other things, I personally can't speak to them because in my life, I've really adapted this way of using earth medicine, not ayahuasca. So I'm not like talking that kind of earth medicine, but I'm talking like using Ayurveda and using Chinese medicine and doing natural herbs and things that come from the earth to heal any ailments that I've had or to aid in my mood and these kinds of things. And so over the last couple of years, everybody knows that I travel a lot with what I do. I'm always on the go. I'm leading retreats. I'm working with people one-on-one. And my health has been struggling the last couple of years. I've also had a couple of other, health things go on that I will disclose later, not right now. But it's left me in this place where I definitely have needed something, and I was not going to go back. Medication works for some people. Anxiety medication. I'm not against Western medicine by any means. I think that people need to do what they need to do, and I'm fully supportive of that. I know that I work with some people that use antidepressants, and that's their thing. I'm just speaking for my personal life. In my experience, for me, I would prefer to not use something that wasn't from the earth, right? It's like, if it came from the earth, eat it. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of the thing. Well, except if it's whatever. It's like, I'm not even going to go into that.
But that's where we came from. Like
Right.
we are part of this earth.
Yeah.
We are nature. And so if we're not remembering that, I think we're missing out on a lot of things that have amazing healing and health potential. And that's
Right.
exactly what you're saying is
Yeah.
we need both, right? Like we
Right.
need modern medicine, but
Exactly. And I love that you come at it from a place of education and being able to understand what, why, and when, right? The what, why, and when. And that's what I really love about your product and your company. And so I had never tried CBD products until you sent me your stuff. And even then, so everybody listening, I kept texting Joe, like, okay, well, when can I use this? And is this okay to use this? And I asked him so many questions. And I'm like, well, what about this? And what about that? Because part of me too, I'm like, I don't necessarily want to promote something that I don't believe in, or, and promote it in the way of like, I'm using something and I love it and I want to share it with everybody. I want people to be able to have this experience. If you are curious and if you have the same stigma that I did, because I was very, when we first talked, I was very kind of like, I've been approached
yeah, you were.
by several different CBD companies, like, and all this stuff, and friends of mine, and sending me products. And I'm just like, I always end up giving it away. I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to use this, But in the last couple of months, I've been in a position in my life with my health where I'm like, okay, well, it's not like I'm doing drugs. And that was my number one thing, because I kept feeling the stigma, like, oh, am I no longer going to be this person who doesn't drink and doesn't do drugs? Like, am I going to turn into this, like, party person? Am I going to be like that guy now? I'm that guy.
Yeah, well,
And
it's probably a part of a piece of, well, it's definitely a piece of your experience growing
right.
up. Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and
Right.
that's like, okay, am I going to be bad? Like, am I
Yeah,
going to be bad because I'm
exactly.
doing this? What are people going to think about me?
Yes.
Is this something that I need to be cognizant of, having alcoholism in my family or whatever it
Right.
may be? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's definitely coming. So to be fully transparent, it's definitely coming from a place of fear. It comes from a place of fear because I have that like aversion. I'm scared. I'm like, oh my God, I'm scared. I'm going to become an alcoholic. I'm scared I'm going to become a drug addict. I've seen what that does to people. It's like, it's a big stigma, right? And so I feel like with something like this, where I feel comfortable and there's a level of trust that I have, and I know the amount of care and energy that you've put into building this brand and this product, I felt safe enough to be like, okay, new friend,
yeah,
I'm gonna try this. Yeah.
yeah.
And like and first it started with my CBD treats for Rocky. We have a little Frenchie that's in we call it assisted living because he can't use his hind legs, and so we have to assist his living. And they've been working really great for him. And so then Joe gave me a prescription of sorts of how to use the product. And I was kind of afraid at first. Like the first day I was like, I don't know if I should do 2 drugs. He said 2. I'm like, maybe I need to do 1, like I need to really just, titrate this experience. But since I've been using it, I really feel the difference just in my level of lowered agitation. I never realized that I had, even with all the meditation I meditate. I mean, this is my life. This is my life. I'm very aware. I'm very conscious. And my thing has always been, I always want to be awake. I want to be awake in every experience. I want to experience everything. That's one of the reasons why I don't drink, because it's just, I want to be here. I want to be in the experience. I want to feel everything. I want to be able to just be in the present and not miss anything. And I realized that prior to using it, I've had this like low level of vibration of like agitation where
Mm,
I've just always been a little bit irritable. And I don't know if it's because of the lack of rest. And I spoke to you that I've had trouble going to sleep and trouble
right.
sleeping and getting the full amount of sleep, that the quality of sleep hasn't been great. And it's everything's changed, you
Yeah,
know?
I remember when you texted me, you were like, Joe, like, what have I been doing? What have I been waiting so long? And it's funny because that's the response that I get from a lot of people that are
Yeah.
hesitant and other people that have tried other companies that, I'll be honest, and this is the unfortunate part of the industry, is there's a lot of really poor quality out there since CBD is, to be honest, like trendy right now.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's a lot of people that are just out there to make a dollar off of it, and
Yeah.
it's really, really frustrating to watch, especially after all the heartache and everything that we've gone through in building this business. And if those people that can actually benefit from it are getting a really poor quality product and then it's not working, well, then this industry looks really, really bad. So that's the response that I get from most
Yeah.
people. We've put a lot of time and effort and care into creating the products that we have, and they work really, really well. And the response that I got from you is the response that we get all the time via social media, via my social media, via text from friends that I've sent stuff to, and through our support email, just getting the feedback from, wow, I was really hesitant about this, and wow, this really works, and it's allowing me to be able to get back to my life, especially through the calming aspects of it. I
Yeah.
use it heavily for my anxiety, which also helps me fall asleep at night because my mind's going a million miles an hour and I can't shut it off. But when I take CBD, in addition to some of our other products that are specifically for sleep, I can get to sleep and stay asleep and fall and wake up not groggy, rested, and I've just used something that comes from the hemp plant that can be grown on scale and actually can do so much for this planet. So it's a beautiful plant that we're getting food from, that we're getting fiber from, that you can get biofuel from, that we're now getting cannabinoid extract from. It has all of these amazing properties and purposes, and it has been stigmatized and illegal for so long. And it's like,
Yeah.
what are we doing? So there's
Yeah.
like this, there's just so many misconceptions. There are a lot of people that, just like yourself, may have some history or some understanding or so, like just drug use or anything that associate uh, CBD and just cannabis and call cannabis a drug. And depending on how you're using it, it can be used in a way, specifically THC, in a way to numb. But
Yeah.
there are so many medicinal, amazing medicinal and therapeutic benefits
Mhm.
of that plant, specifically around the CBD cannabinoid,
Yeah.
that we've just, well, haven't known about or have just turned a blind eye to.
Mhm. Mhm.
And to be honest, it's extremely safe. There's no side effects. And if you're getting a really high quality product, it's going to work. And when I got that text message from you, I was like, yes. I was like, I
Well,
was stoked because you were hesitant when we
yeah,
were
I
on the.
was. Well, and I was like totally honest, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
can you tell the viewers, listeners about the difference between a THC product and a non-THC active product?
Yeah, yeah. So all of our products are derived from the hemp plant. The hemp plant and the marijuana plant are both of the cannabis family. Hemp has less than 0.3% THC. Marijuana has higher than 0.3% THC. Marijuana and THC are what people associate with the high, and hemp is mostly known for its industrial purposes, but we're extracting CBD oil, cannabinoid extract, from the hemp plant. Since it only has 0.3% or less THC in it, it's not enough to actually get you high. So some of our products, we've completely taken the THC out. Other products have very, very low concentrations at the 0.3% or less.
Yeah.
So if you're dividing that over, 60 servings in a bottle, you're getting minuscule amount every time you take it. You're actually getting a little bit of amount that can provide therapeutic benefits, but you're never going to feel the intoxicating effects of THC. So some people like to say one is psychoactive and one isn't. They're saying THC is and CBD isn't. CBD actually has effects and psychoactive effects. It does stuff in your brain, but it's not intoxicating. And that's the
Yeah.
difference between the two. And I think a lot of people are instantly thinking that CBD is marijuana and THC, where marijuana and THC are regulated completely differently, and rightfully so. You have to go to a dispensary to get it. Some states you have to have that medical license, whereas cannabidiol extract, CBD extract, is non-intoxicating, has all the same medicinal benefits, but doesn't give you that high. So that's where people get confused.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people ask about drug tests and can I pass a drug test? If you're worried about that, there are a lot of THC free versions of the product out there. And another thing that we say is, even though there are the trace amounts of THC in a full spectrum extract, it's kind of the same analogy of eating poppy seeds and potentially failing a drug test for opiates. So that's kind of the warning or the disclaimer that we give, but it's not intoxicating. It's not going to get you high. And that's the
Right.
big misconception around CBD.
Yeah. And again, it's like, I love the fact that you were so open and so willing to educate me and answer my questions and everything, because I really do think it's something that's been a pretty big game changer for me. And I'm really grateful that this has been, it's like almost having that uh, first car experience. You know, everybody drives a beater at first and then you might get a new car later. I'm like, I went straight into the new car.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a really nice way of getting into this. I'm glad I waited, and I'm glad that it was you and this product that was, you know, my experience. So I want to be respectful of your time, but I do have a couple more questions. I hope that's
Yes,
okay.
absolutely.
I feel like we didn't even
This is
get
not
to
the end of this.
I know. Are you kidding? No, this is going to happen again. In my mind, I'm already like, oh, we're going to have him back on because I need to ask about this. Um, if you had to choose 3 things that you want people to know about I don't even want to say like your company or your ethos or even this product, you know, because you focus a lot on education. For the people that already have a stigma, what would be 3 things that you would want them to know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think one stigma there could be the stigma around thinking that it's marijuana, but there's also this stigma around, oh, CBD, it's just trendy and it's just a buzzword and it doesn't actually work. That can be true depending on who you're buying the product from. We've tested products that say CBD, 1,000 milligrams on them, and they have 0 CBD in it. So there's a lot of people out there on the market that are making money off of people's ignorance. So looking into companies is extremely important. CURED, the first thing that we really pride ourselves on is the farm to table business model. So we had our own farm last year in Boulder, Colorado. We planted the plant at clone size down at a couple inches tall, saw it all the way through maturity, brought our hemp flower to the extractor, got the hemp extract back, basically saw the whole life cycle of the plant, and we're able to bring our customers the most high quality product possible that we know has gone through a process that we 100% stand by and have created a very high purity product. We now have a partner farm in Pueblo, Colorado that we go to, and we walk around and we meet the farmers and we know all that. There are a lot of companies that slap a label on a bottle and they ship it out the door, and that is not cured. And I really encourage people to look into companies and understand where it's coming from. So CURED, that's one thing that we do massively, is we have great oversight on that. the second piece of that is the quality control and the actual testing that goes into it. So you can understand where it comes from, but do you understand what's in it and what's the purity of the product? We've created a quality control section of our website called Cured Quality Control down in the footer at curednutrition.com. And you can click on that. You can see the absence of pesticides in our products. You can see the absence of any residual solvents that would come from the extraction process. We test for heavy metals and microbial. And we also do all the purity testing. So that came from myself and my business partner being engineers and understanding the technology that and the lab science that needs to go on in the back end to make sure that the purity of the product is what we say it is. So that's the second most important part, is understanding the source and then understanding all the quality control that goes behind it. And the third thing that I want people to really know about Cured is that that's what matters, is understanding those and understanding that we're going to be here to put all that education out there for you, and that we're doing that to empower the consumer to ask the right questions, to go find a brand that, if it's not cured, to understand to ask those questions so you're getting what you deserve. Because as a consumer, we're fed a lot of noise, and it's a massive disservice to a lot of people and a disservice to the cannabis and CBD industry if you're not asking the right questions, you're giving the education out there. So Cured is an education wellness company that thrives on our community of people that listen to this message and spread that message and just start asking questions. And that's asking questions about all things health, wellness, and everything that we're taking. So that's kind of the ethos that we're building there. And that's what I want more and more people to know about Cured is, hey, if you're not gonna buy from us, at least just absorb some of the information and then go ask the right questions and then spread that message and say, hey, like, this is a company that I look to that I think other companies should kind of follow suit in. So just trying to do that, and it's working, and we're building a great community of people across the world that entrust in us, because that's what's most important for building a viable and sustainable business, is that trust.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. And for the people that are watching or listening, the product that I've been using is the hemp oil. It's the mint one. It's a THC free. It's the 1000.
Okay, yeah. I'll send you the 2000 next time. We'll go strong.
This is almost done, so you might want to.
I'm gonna write a note to that one.
Yeah. So I'm like, this is almost out. So can I please get a refill? This is the only reason why I did this interview, you guys, is so I can get a free refill.
We'll pitch the question.
I know. Okay, so there's I typically, for all of my guests, I always ask this final question. But before I do, for the people watching the video or listening to this podcast, where can they go for more information or to reach you or ask questions?
Yeah, thank you for that. So my personal page is Joseph Sheehey on Instagram. Last name is spelled Sheehey. So reach out to me, follow me on there. Feel free to shoot me a direct message or ask me any questions. I share a lot of just my personal life on there and some Cured stuff. But Cured Nutrition is our Instagram handle. www.curednutrition.com is where you can buy any of our products. Specifically for the listeners of your podcast, I created a coupon code RADICAL for 15% off, and we're super excited what else that's going to lead to in the future. So you radically loved listeners, there's more to come here, but for now, that is there at curednutrition.com, and feel free to reach out to us via Instagram or our email or anything like that. And we're happy to answer any questions people may have.
Cool. And for the people listening as well, we'll have that in the show notes. So if you go to the info button on your on this particular podcast, you can see all the links to get into touch with Joe and to get the discount code. It'll all be on there. Okay. So I created this podcast to create a space for people to come to get inspired or to just feel connected with their community. And the idea is that we are radically loved by God, source, whatever higher power of your understanding. The universe works for us and not against us. And so the final question to you is two parts. The first one is, what do you radically love? And the second is, how do you feel radically loved?
Mm. I instantly went to, I radically love myself, and I feel radically loved when my loved one, my partner in life, gives me the ability to take care of myself in the way that I need to, because I tend to be a people pleaser and I tend to not take care of myself that much. But when I am allowed to do that, which is me giving myself permission, but also people in my life creating that space, I feel radically loved. And then I remember what it feels like to radically love myself by taking care of myself.
Mm. Oh, I love that. Joe, thank you so much. This is only the beginning. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for doing this. Thanks for being on. And thank you for all the value that you're providing to the world and to helping people get cured and to just elevating the consciousness all around you and for sharing your story here. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to watch this relationship continue to evolve.
Yay. Okay, everybody. Goodbye.